Well, Indiana lawmakers heard testimony this week that would basically put restrictions on charitable organizations like the Bail Project. It would make them license themselves with the Department of Insurance, which they are not right now. And joining us on the news line is Nikki Sterling. She is the mother of Dylan McGinnis, who was murdered this past October in Indianapolis by a man who was bailed out from the Bail Project. So, Nikki, first of all, we're very sorry about your loss, and thank you very much for being with us today. We do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, tell us a little bit about your son. What kind of person was he?
Yeah, Dylan was, he was such a happy-go-lucky guy. Loved life, loved his family, loved his friends. He really found joy in helping other people. Had the ability to connect with perfect strangers. He was just a great kid. I guess I should say young man. He's 24. He had aspirations to take over his father's electrical company, wanted to learn his dad's business so that he could eventually become a business owner once his dad retired. Again, he was just such a great person, such a terrible loss for our family.
When you, for lack of a better term, like I said, this may be a little difficult for you, but when you folks found out what happened to him, what went through your mind?
Well, I have to be honest with you, it was complete shock. It's just never a phone call that you ever expect to be, to get in the middle of the night. So I actually received a phone call at about 2 a.m. Arizona time to inform me of what happened. And then, when we found out about 3 weeks later that the individual that shot Dylan was released by the Bail Project. Again, we were shocked, didn't really know about much about the project or charitable organizations at that time, but just really tried to develop an understanding and how they operate. And still, it's still a shock to the system. It's something that I can't wrap my brain around.
When you hear about organizations like the Bail Project, well, first of all, let me take a step back. What did you testify this week before the House Financial Institutions and Insurance Committee?
So today I testified in support of House Bill 1300, which in part, so it prohibits charitable bail organizations from bailing out offenders with felony charges, imposes a $2,000 bail bond cap, as well as requires them to register with the Department of Insurance.
Now, I know there are some folks who said basically that with what happened to your son, unfortunately, was only one of 3 people, that the Bail Project bails out thousands of people on a regular basis, and they shouldn't be penalized for what they said were 3 unfortunate incidents. What goes through your mind when you hear that?
So I just have to say, I talked about that today. It might have been an exception to the Bail Project, but Dylan was my world. That's just one exception too many, in my opinion. I don't believe that they would make the same comment if their family were impacted by this. I understand their mission in wanting to aid individuals on low misdemeanor charges, helping them get back to their families. But I don't think it's a fair statement to say that, my son is considered an exception. That's really painful to hear because, again, to me, that one exception has just shattered my life.
Our guest on the program today is Nikki Sterling. Her son, Dylan, was murdered. Dylan McGinnis was murdered this past October by a gentleman who was out on bail in part thanks to the Bail Project. She testified this week in front of a House committee to let them know how she felt about what was going on. Nikki, let me ask you, because one of the other criticisms was that the issue wasn't necessarily the Bail Project. They said it was the judges who reduced the bail that made it possible for the Bail Project to get the young man released who murdered your son. What goes through your mind when you hear that it wasn't the Bail Project? It was the judges who were responsible.
Well, we've heard time and time again that the Bail Project doesn't do any research on the individuals that they're bailing out. So, with the offender that shot my son, he had multiple felony charges. There were, 2 other cases in Indiana where these individuals were not, they were violent repeat offenders. And while I do think that there is some accountability also at the judge level, with the regulations that we're requesting or proposing, or the House and the Senate are putting forth, it would not allow, you would not be able to bail out a felony offender out of jail. So even if that judge did decrease the bail bond down to $1,500, if there was a felony charge in their criminal history, that offender would not be bailed out of jail. So it would, while I think that at a high level that also needs to be looked into, this would prevent them, any violent felony offender, from getting out of jail.
Nikki Sterling with us on the program today. Nikki is the mother of Dylan McGinnis. He was a 24-year-old man who was shot to death back in March by an individual who was released from the bail project. So she testified this week in front of House and lawmakers. Nikki, what was their reaction to your testimony? I'm sure it had to be heart-wrenching.
Yeah, it was pretty quiet in there when I was speaking. I had a lot of individuals looking at me. The House representatives were just taking it all in. It was pretty quiet in the House chamber when I was speaking.
Also, another criticism that has been that the charitable bail folks are being treated differently than the for bail profit people. That the for bail profit people, they have to register with insurance, they're responsible if people don't show up, and that the charity bail folks, people say if you clamp down on charities, then that would stop families from getting together, pulling their money and resources and getting their loved one out of jail.
Well, I think what Senate Bill 8 does is puts them right there in line with for-profit organizations as well. So I wouldn't consider a charitable organization any different from a for-profit organization, because they should also have the accountability. So when an individual or a family gathers money together to bail out an individual, there is some accountability to really see to that individual that they appear in court and that they don't commit additional crimes. So what's not happening is there is no accountability to the bail project once that offender's released, and there's no oversight to the offender. So there's essentially, you're not going to lose, the charitable bail organization is not going to lose any money if they front bail for a violent offender and they turn around and they repeat a violent crime.
Our guest on the program today, Nikki Sterling. Nikki Sterling, her son, Dylan McGinnis, was shot dead, unfortunately, in an October shooting last year by a man who was released by the Bail Project, in part because the Bail Project paid for his bail. The Bail Project has also paid for the release of a man who murdered his girlfriend out on bond, as well as a burglary suspect who subsequently stabbed two Indianapolis police officers. And it's got lawmakers in a bit of a tizzy, want to know exactly what to do and how these issues can be taken care of. Let me ask you this, Nikki, and our guest on the program today is Nikki Sterling. Nikki, let me ask you, has anyone from the Bail Project reached out to you to apologize for what happened, to say, hey, you know what, we are so sorry, this is not what we do? Any sort of outreach from the Bail Project to you and your family? No, not at all. Actually, I have, when I appeared at the Senate committee a couple of weeks ago, David Gaspar, the national director of the Bail Project, was present at that time as well as present today, and I have not heard, nobody has contacted me for condolences. He's had the opportunity a couple of times now face-to-face to do that, and has not. Wow. I mean, and that to me is just sort of shocking that you would think that, even if you believe that these situations are very rare, you would still want to, express at least some kind of sympathy, to the families of the folks whose loved ones are either, murdered or injured, in part because of your posting bail for someone. Right. There has not been any acknowledgement at all to our family. I know he has expressed condolences through the media, but he has not personally, which he's had the opportunity to do 2 times now, come up and spoken to me at all. So, Nikki, we've got just a couple minutes left here. What would you like to see done at the end of the day with respect to bail here in Indiana? Well, I'd really like, obviously, I'd like for the regulations to pass through the House and the Senate and really make that, what I wanted to do was bring awareness to the public that this is going on, and, it's being funded through taxpayer dollars, through grants. And, my son was such a kind person and was so willing to help other people. And I always say, if there's a life that I can help save by helping to push this bill through regulation, then
I would say that, I'm carrying on the legacy of my son, Dylan.
All right. Well, Nikki Sterling, who spoke this week in front of the House Committee about the bail project, who lost her son, Dylan McGinnis, back in October. Nikki, thank you very, very much for being with us. Nothing but our deepest sympathies, and anything we can do to help you folks, please do not hesitate to call and let us know. We're happy to do it.
Thank you so much.